There are thousands of them in the United States, responsible for the sale of millions of puppies each year. But all dog breeders aren't the same. Some are considered puppy mills.
We, as the Humane Society of the United States, define a puppy mill as an inhumane commercial dog breeding facility that, frankly, puts the wealth of the breeder over the welfare of the animal.
Each year, the Humane Society of the United States creates a list of the 100 worst puppy mills in the country, called the Horrible 100 List. One breeder on the list is located in Siouxland, Iowa. Shaggy Hill Farms has been on this list 3 times.
I think it's a stretch to assume that these folks are going to become good actors. And so we're really hoping that this type of report will kind of create a sense of urgency in the public and from the State Department of Ag and from the USDA that you have a long history of violations here, and it's time for some serious ramifications to come from them.
Based on inspection reports obtained by Siouxland News, Shaggy Hill Farms is licensed by the Iowa Department of Agriculture. A number of times, inspectors were not allowed on the premises. The facility was not approved for a license in January of 2018 because of this. They were not approved again in June of 2018 after a failed inspection. Just a week later, they were approved for a breeding license, though a number of violations were found at the facility. In August of 2019, an inspector discovered multiple unsafe kennels and found that the dogs were too cramped. The kennel was told they could not exceed 80 dogs. At that time, they had 200. Also during this visit, inspectors noted unsanitary conditions and a lack of grooming on some of the dogs. The owners of Shaggy Hill Farms were also instructed to begin hand-walking the dogs twice a day due to lack of exercise space. Inspectors visited the kennel twice more in September and November of 2019, where many of the same violations were still present. They were found to be non-compliant. 2 weeks later, an inspector returned and reported that the violations noted in past reports had been fixed, and the dogs and their kennels were clean. Following the publication of the Horrible 100 list, Shaggy Hill Farms changed their name to JKLM Farm, listed under the same owner and address in Siouxland, Iowa. Their last inspection of public record was November 27th of 2019. The kennel was found to be compliant and their license was granted through June of 2021.
The general regulations here in the state of Iowa is that dogs in commercial breeding facilities have to have some food, they have to have some water. They have to have some sort of housing. We're talking about kennels with wire floors. We're talking about cages that are just barely big enough for animals to stand up and turn around.
Let's move on to Sheldon, Iowa, where we find USDA licensed breeder Northwest Kennel. Northwest Kennel has been listed on the Horrible 100 list twice and has had a number of violations noted within their recent inspection reports. In July of 2018, federal inspectors found that the kennel was using nearly 24 bottles of expired medications on the dogs, including a bottle of testosterone hormone that had expired in 2001. The facility was also found to be cluttered and dirty, with some kennels rusted so bad it affected their structural strength. Feeders and water bowls were also found to be corroded and dirty. At that time, they had 136 dogs and puppies in their care. A year later, in August of 2019, inspectors returned and found that the feeders, water bowls, and some kennels were still unsafe. They also discovered unsafe flooring that could trap the dogs and found a litter of puppies in a kennel with wire flooring. Their feet were falling through. In January of 2020, another inspection found that the previous violations were never corrected, including housing puppies on wire flooring so wide their feet were falling through the holes. Northwest Kennel holds a B license with the USDA, meaning they are licensed to sell to pet stores. When visiting the address listed for Northwest Kennels, we found Dog House, etc., a pet store selling puppies, kittens, and other animals. A sign on the property said Northwest Kennels. With all of these violations, how are these 2 breeders and others on this list able to keep their licenses?
Over the last few years, the USDA's enforcement and issuing of violations has gone down dramatically. The USDA inspectors are now using what they call teachable moments, and they're just having conversations with the owners of these facilities instead of actually noting violations. What we really need is for the state of Iowa and the USDA inspectors to be given more authority to actually stop these facilities from producing more puppies and from expanding and from selling their puppies all over the country if this is the type of conditions that we're seeing.
The Horrible 100 list is just that, a list. a tool that the public can use when researching a breeder to purchase a puppy from. But its creators hope this list helps increase breeding regulations as well. I'm Katie Koppel, Siouxland News.
Puppies in general are kind of the one purchase people make without doing any research. When we buy a car, we read reviews, we test drive the cars, the same with buying a house. But these companion animals that we're purchasing that will live with us, hopefully for 20 years, this is the one area where people are not doing their research.
Bringing a puppy into your home is exciting. Deciding where to get your new companion from is the first big decision. If you decide to purchase from a breeder, how do you know if that breeder is considered a puppy mill? A puppy mill is defined as a commercial dog breeding facility putting the profit over the well-being of the dogs. Iowa is no stranger to puppy mills.
Iowa is very, very rich in agriculture. Well, that means we're also rich in dog farms, and that's essentially what these are. These are breeders who do not farm livestock type animals for food consumption. They are farming and mass producing puppies to be sold to the public.
Each breeder is required to be licensed, but what license they carry depends on how they sell their puppies.
Commercial dog breeding facilities are licensed in one of two ways. The first way is by the state. So there are some facilities licensed by the state of Iowa here, and they're licensed by the state if they are selling primarily directly to consumers and they're not crossing state lines. If they are crossing state lines, they're selling sight unseen by shipping their animals, or they're selling via third party like pet stores, they're more than likely going to be USDA licensed.
Just because a facility carries a license doesn't mean they are considered a reputable breeder. Most of the breeders listed on the Humane Society's Horrible 100 report are licensed, but they have accumulated numerous violations and are still in business.
We have documentation where dogs and puppies' feet and legs are falling through cages. They can't stand on their own. Some of these animals have broken limbs and they can't put weight on them at all. And yet the only punishment is getting a violation on an inspection report.
Inspections are done based on regulations set by either the state or the Animal Welfare Act. Here in the state of Iowa, new regulations for breeders began July 1st, like raising the minimum temperature for breeding facilities by 10 degrees and requiring a solid resting surface in kennels for the animals to lay on.
With the new regulations coming down the pipeline in the state of Iowa, we've got a big question mark in the air of, well, what is that going to mean? Are we going to just see more inspection reports with violations? Or, and this is what I'm hopeful will happen, are we going to see the State Department of Ag actually come in and start pulling some licenses?
We really need the Iowa Department of Ag to step up and enforce the regulations they have in place. We need the USDA to do something very similar. These two agencies are really just inspection agencies. They don't exist to save the animals from these facilities.
Callison says while there are still too many puppy mill breeders open, changes have been made.
The laws have changed a little bit here in Iowa. We've seen a lot of the worst puppy mills close down, whether it was because of age or because of public pressure or public awareness. But we've also seen more pop up.
Moore says not all breeders are bad, but those that are take away from those who take care of their animals.
I think that this industry is just inherently cruel. And it's unfortunate because we do have some amazing, reputable breeders in the state, and I'm proud to work with them. But we also have a fair number of folks like this who are giving breeders a bad name. They are looking to make money. They're not necessarily looking at making sure these animals get good forever homes.
So what can the public do to help put an end to puppy mills?
A lot of people, when they read those reports, they think they need to go save a puppy from that facility. But you're not saving a puppy from a pet store. You're not saving a puppy from a puppy mill. What you're doing is you're creating a hole for another puppy to be put in to be sold again. You're proving there's a demand for the product. But the other thing that people can do is contact their legislators. Here in Iowa, we try all the time to get a puppy mill bill passed or an animal cruelty bill passed. And it takes all of us from across the state to contact our legislators and strongly urge them to pass new laws.
I'm Katie Koppel, Siouxland News.